Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. 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 Okay, as always, we put $1 into the tzedakah box before starting anything. It's the angels of charity will bless our learning. This is the last class in this series on Introduction to Meditation and Mysticism. So if you haven't emptied your tzedakah box from this, then empty it and give it to a charity. Not to the temple. Give it to someone on the street, to a charity that you need, whatever it may be. Orlando, again, thank you for everything you're doing. Are you turning on some more lights? Is that what's? Oh wow, that worked. That's bright. No, it's okay. I mean, if that's what we need. So let's just recap a little bit of what we've done. Okay, we've talked about Jewish astrology. We've talked about Jewish numerology. Most importantly, we talked about the concept of Maaseh Bereshit and Maaseh Merkavah, the workings of creation. How and why did God create the universe? Maaseh Merkavah, how and why does God sustain the universe? We've discussed and learned about finding hidden pieces in the text. You might remember finding and splitting apart the word Bereshit. Again, this is all in your handout. I also want to encourage everyone, you can download the handout. There's also a new handout I'd like you to do right now if you can. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at it. There it is, but it's on Facebook, it's on YouTube. We're going to need that a little bit later this evening. It's just a brief one page. So we've gone through those kind of things. We've gone through how the world is created, how our names, how the months, how all these things coalesce and come together. We've discussed a lot of different concepts. We've explored text from a different perspective, and we've explored meditation a bit, and hopefully you've been practicing that. And we've explored the idea of the Sfirot, the 10 energy centers and the 22 pathways. I also want to say today, today is the 30th day of the counting of the Omer. We are almost to Lag BaOmer. That's this Thursday evening. It is the mystics' holiday, based on the holiday. It's the yahrzeit of this amazing Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who wrote the Zohar and his teachings. And he wanted his yahrzeit to always be a celebratory day, and it is. In Israel, people make bonfires. We can't really do that here right now with what's going on in the world, but it's a wonderful holiday because it's also about the giving of the Zohar. So that's this week. That's a really special day. So we've gone through all these things, and now we're going to try and bring some of them together in a personal experience. So hopefully, by this time, you've been practicing that triangle breathing. Now let's just recap again what triangle breathing is. When you inhale to a count of 4, you exhale to a count of 4, and you hold with your lungs empty to another count of 4. So you inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. So it's and to do that kind of triangle breathing, how it changes. We've discussed how it changes your neurochemistry, your brain chemistry, how it makes us more aware of life around us. And how when we are inhaling, we're really not inhaling God's blowing breath into us. We're just lekabel, we're just receiving. So God's blowing in while we inhale. God is inhaling our exhale, and then we're holding at the same time. This image right here of 2 triangles, and as they overlay each other, you get the Magen David, as we remember the shield of David. That was from a few weeks ago, I think the week before Passover. And that the shield of David is really knowing that God is always breathing us. We're not breathing God. We're not really inhaling. God's filling us up and taking our air out like a balloon. God is always giving us a divine kiss. So hopefully you've been practicing that. And again, neurophysiologists have recognized that 12 minutes a day makes a difference. It's like tuning an instrument, tuning a violin, tuning a guitar. We've also spent a lot of time in the very beginning of the first class and second class talking about the 4-lettered name of God, that Yud, He, Vav, and He, that we don't pronounce. It's called tetragrammaton, or we pronounce it as Adonai or Hashem, meaning my master or the name. Academics call it the tetragrammaton, or the 4-lettered name. And how important that is in Judaism, and how that's a skeleton key that opens up all of Judaism in every way, shape, and form. So we're going to try and integrate a lot of that together. We talked last week with some depth about this concept of the 10 Sefirot. The idea that these 10 energy centers, that they're based on the name of God. If you remember the chart that we had last week, I'm not going to do all that whole chart that we had every day, but that these are based on the name of God, the four-letter name, in a vertical way, rather than horizontally. Rather, it's Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. It looks like a human being, as you see right here, and it corresponds to these energy centers. We talked about why each one is called what it's called and how it has a different vibration, a different quality, and how it overlays onto the body. There are 7 in the physical body and 3 above us, like a halo. And remember, again, we're looking at this as if this is the back of the human being. So Chokhmah and Chesed and Netzach are all on the right side. It's as if you're looking this way, okay? Even though his face is here because you can't really draw the back of the head. But this is his right arm, this is his left. And we discussed these things and how it overlays into parts of the body. We're going to take all of that and try and do some more integration of it tonight. If you get lost, type something in, write something. If you get lost because you haven't been to all the other classes, they're all online. You can see the last, I think it's 6 weeks, Orlando, is that correct? 6, 7 weeks, something like that. You can see these classes on our Facebook or our YouTube pages. Just review them, because this is sort of the penultimate session of this introductory class, because we're going to touch on a very complex meditation. It's very, very powerful, and you may even find it that it is similar in some ways to when you have seen shamanic meditations, or if you've ever experienced the Gyoto monks, Tibetan Buddhist monks, you'll see that there's similarities as well. Okay, so let's start with just this concept of taking a few moments. And if you have a question, you got to type it in. It's really hard to do this when there's no one physically there. We can't have feedback. We can't have the interaction. So if you have a question, please type it. If you have a comment, please type it. So we're going to stand up straight, right? Or sit up straight. So our back is straight, like the Vav in the Yud Hey Vav Hey that becomes us. And inhale through our nose to a count of 4. Exhale through our mouth to a count of 4, and hold it. Remember, we're not inhaling, God is blowing it into us. We're not exhaling, God is taking the breath. We need to just receive. And as we're receiving that breath, to find the moment that the breath becomes ours. When I exhale it, we know it's my breath. I had garlic pizza, we know, right? But at what point is it's being inhaled? Is it no longer God's, but it becomes our breath? And when you think you found the moment, find the microsecond. When you think you found the microsecond, find the millisecond, the smaller, or the microsecond, whatever the smallest amount is. And trying to search for that small moment, you will enter into a space called the Ein Sof, the space without end. So just to get us into the space of it, for a moment, we're going to just inhale to 4 and exhale to 4 and hold, like a triangle breath. Okay, so we inhale, exhale, just pause. Notice how much wider your peripheral vision is, your ability to hear is. If we can improve our senses by 10%, 10% improvement in anything is the difference between a high school baseball pitcher and a major league baseball pitcher. Between a 90-mile-an-hour fastball and a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Between saying 300, much lower. And so just relax and take that. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to, first of all, do a meditation with the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We're going to inhale and exhale with each breath. The Shema is actually meditation. It's a private meditation before we even do it as a community. That's why you'll see the paintings or the histories and the mystics cover in the Talit and say the Shema privately first, because it's a meditation. So we're going to inhale in Shema and exhale in Israel, except you're not going to say Israel. Each of us have our own name. My Hebrew name is Moshe Yisrael. Your Hebrew name might be Michael, it might be David, it might be Rivka, it might be Sarah. When God says the Shema to everyone, to the whole people of Israel. So it's Shema Yisrael. Listen, you people of Israel. But when we're doing it, when God's just speaking to me, he's not calling me Israel, he's calling Moshe Yisrael. If your name is Sarah, he's calling you Sarah. So we're going to inhale to Shema, exhale your name. Now I'm making the assumption that you know the Shema, and I'm making the assumption that you know your name. If you don't know your Hebrew name, you can do your English name. And if you don't know the Shema, then email me, we'll send it to you, and I'll send you a whole chart to do this with. But I'm going to inhale Shema, exhale my name. Inhale, so you'll see that. Inhale Ha, exhale Shem. Inhale Elo, exhale Hi, because I'm saying my God. This hero Israel, here Michael, the Lord is my God. Hashem Echad. So it will be, for me, it's something like this. Moshe Israel. That for every person. Can that be heard on this microphone when I was just doing that? Is that okay? All right. Let me make it a little easier for those of you who aren't so sure of the Shema. So, Shema, your name. Ha, Shem. Elo, Hi. Ha, Shem. Echad. And it's going to be an inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So again, you can write this down. Glenn, if you can go close on that, please, thank you. And when it says your name, actually write your name so you know when you have it in front of you. Again, we're going to do this a little bit on our own. Okay. Sit straight. Hopefully you know the Shema. Again, if not, you can look at the notes. You can look at there. We're going to inhale when we exhale our name. God doesn't shout, God whispers in our own voice, and we need to listen. We really need to hear. If you have a question or a comment, please, these are good times to type it, because this is kind of intense stuff. So, try one more time, nice and slowly. Inhale Shema. Exhale your name. Inhale Ha. Exhale Shem. Inhale Elo. Exhale, high. Inhale, ha. Exhale, shem. Inhale, eh. Exhale, chad. If you feel comfortable, I invite you to please type in your comments or thoughts about your experience as you do this, even one round, which we just did. And we want to do it many, many times, many rounds in a row. Certainly at least once before you say the Shema in any prayer service. It will change your experience of the Shema and Ve'ahavta prayers in your Friday night, Saturday morning, weekday morning, whatever service you're doing. So that's the first thing. Now, if you count that, we have 5 inhales and 5 exhales. And as you can imagine, that's going to correspond to the 10 Sfirot. We're not going to go into all that, but you could focus on Shema, your name, Ha, Shem, Elo, Hai, Ha, Shem, Echad. I'm looking at that chart. But take it a step at a time, okay? This is a complex meditation. It's involving the prayers that we've done. Excuse me, I don't know if it's a funeral, so I have to. So it has to be whatever your name is. Someone just texted the name is Moisha. It's a complex process, but the idea is to practice it. It will change how you interact with the world, and it will change how you interact with the prayer service. If you do this personal meditation of the Shema before you say it in a prayer service, your Shema Ve'ahavta will be really, really different. I guarantee you. Okay? If you have a question or comment, please type it on in. So we've talked about triangle breathing, how that becomes the shield of David, the Magen David, a number of weeks ago, and how that corresponds also, how our breathing can correspond to the months, the astrology that we did a couple of classes ago, and the numerology, the gematria that we've done. This is all how God sustains the world. This is all Maaseh Merkavah. Remember, the first couple of weeks we talked about Maaseh Bereshit, how and why does God create the world? Now we've been dealing with how and why does God sustain it? Why are we here? What are we here to do? What is this about? There is an extremely advanced and powerful meditation. I mean, I guess it's not that advanced, but it's for where we are right now, it's advanced. And it's a very, very powerful meditation. It's called the 21st Yehud. Now, you may remember from the first week that we discussed Rabbi Isaac Luria of blessed memory, also called Ha'ari, the lion, or the holy Rabbi Isaac. And he took the different teachings from Talmud, from Sefer Yetzirah, from Behir, these different texts. He took these different understandings from Torah, Tanakh, from the Bible. And he took the understandings of Maaseh Bereshit, the workings of how and why God created the world, and Maaseh Merkavah, how and why God sustains the world, and he integrated it all together. And that's what's known today as Lurianic Kabbalah. And when someone says they're studying Kabbalah, that's really what they're studying. So I've always, and I want to remind you again, not to call it Kabbalah, because we've been studying what predated Luria. Okay, most of what we've been studying predated Luria. So it's just Jewish mysticism, not Kabbalah per se in the same way. Luria combined. Luria has a very, very powerful meditation, and it's called the 21st Yehud. You can find it in the handout that is online right now that you can download. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that. But what Luria does is we recognize that two of the big numbers in Judaism, all numbers are important, but two especially important numbers. It's the number 4, because that's the number of letters in God's name, and the number 10. 10 commandments, 10 sfirot, 10 utterances that God does to create the universe. This number 10 is extremely important as well. And when we get later on, as we study Sefer Yetzirah, but here we find that even the 10 digits have their own energies that correspond with different elements, etc. But so 10 and 4 are both very important in Jewish mystical tradition. Luria integrates an understanding of breathing, the 10 sefirot, the 10 energy centers in our being, and God's name into one meditation. It's extremely, extremely powerful to do on your own, and you will find it, it'll light a spark up inside. Is there a question or a comment, Orlando? Okay. So let's take a look first at the structure and then what we're going to do. Okay. There are 10 vowels. These are the 10 vowels. Okay. There are 10 energy centers. They correspond to 3 outside the body and 7 inside. So each vowel corresponds to one of these sphirot, one of these centers. So keter, the ah sounds to there, and so on. We're going to combine all that together, and we're going to integrate it with God's holy name with the vowels. What do I mean? God's name has 4 letters, Y, H, W, H. Now, we could put any vowels underneath each of those letters. Remember, in Hebrew, you have a letter, and then the vowel goes under it or above it. That's where the vowels are. That's why in Torah, there's no vowels. There's no vowels. What we're going to do, as you see in your charts, we're going to put a series of vowels under it and focus on one energy center. Then we're going to take and focus on another energy center, and we're going to put another series of vowels, and so on. This is going to take some while. Again, this is going to be very difficult if you're not yet familiar with the sphirot that we studied, if you're not yet familiar with the breathing. Okay? But you can look back at the classes. One of the advantages of actually videotaping classes is they can be reviewed, which is a nice benefit, I guess. The downside, again, is it's so challenging to not have people here and be able to feel where they are. So we're going to focus on the top sphere right here. It's called Keter, above our head. We're going to use God's holy name, the Yud, He, Vav, and He. So it's a YHWH sound. And if you look at, excuse me, your handout, which actually comes from this book, you see this square, you'll see that right underneath it, it has these vowels, if you look very, very carefully. And the vowel has a sound that is all. So I'm going to focus on my keter, my area up here, with breathing the 4 consonants with that one vowel of all. So I'm going to go yo. I'm doing this very quickly right now, just to get an idea. We're going to actually do it, and the way you really want to do this when you're comfortable with it is to do an entire breath on each vowel. So when I do this meditation on a regular basis, the way that it sounds for me, and I would recommend for each person, is you're going yo. Each sphera sounds that way with a different vocal intonation and a different vowel. And when you're done with all 10, it takes, 8, 10, 12 minutes to do a whole cycle. We're learning it, so we're going to do it all in one breath. So I'll call out what the name of each vowel sound is, because we're going to go from that sound to here, right above our right ear, right shoulder, right out here, chokmah, and we're going to go Yahawaha. And over here, if you look at this, it says, how does it phrase it? The left brain, but we're actually putting it right here. And it will be Yay, hey, way, hey. Right chest, right arm. I think they call it right arm, but it's actually more of a chest. What will be yeah, weh, ha. And here it's yee, he, wee, he. Here in our Tiferet, yo, ho, wo, ho, etc. There are two ways of doing Malchut, which is the one at the bottom, the 10th Sfirot. And again, if you haven't been in the other classes, this might be a little confusing. So write emails, write in your Facebook and your YouTube chat. If you're more comfortable texting me, text me, whatever it may be. Okay. And when we get to the 10th one, there are two ways of doing it. We're going to do the simpler way, which is just to breathe and be silent. The other way is to combine all the vowels that are used with Yud He Vav He, as well as with the letters Aleph, Daled, Nun, and Yud, which spell out an I. So the other way of doing the 10th one, which is not listed here, is going Ya He De Wed Ho Yu. We're not going to do that, so you don't have to worry about it. We're just going to do nice and silent. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus or point out what we're doing, where it is, and what the vowel sound is. And remember, the consonants are Y, H, W, H. Ancient Hebrew, Vav was not pronounced as a Va, it was pronounced as Wa. Okay? If you have a question, type it in. This is not easy stuff, folks. Okay? This is not primer stuff, even though this is an introduction to mysticism meditation. This is the last class of it, and this is really, it's built on a lot of things, a lot of understandings. So what I'd like you to do is sit up straight. And for a moment, imagine you're not breathing, but God is blowing the breath into you. Do your triangle breathing. Inhale to a count of 4, exhale to a count of 4, and then hold with your lungs empty to a count of 4, having faith that God will fill them up. So I'm going to tell you where to focus your consciousness and what the vowel sound is. So the first place is our Keter. It is above our head, 6 to 8 inches above here. And the sound is all. So we inhale. Yo. Wait. This isn't about you watching me. You got to do it yourself. Okay? Don't just sort of watch. And there's probably no one around you. And if there is, they'll put up with you. So take the moment and let the sound come out of your throat. Let it come out of your chest. Let it come out of your being. Loosen up your body. And do it just through breath. The word for breath in Hebrew is the same as the word for spirit or soul. So allow the breath to move through you. Again, inhale through your nose and you're letting it out with God's name. Okay? So again, I'm going to ask you to please give yourself the permission to make these sounds as well, to really make these sounds of God's name. So we pause as we breathe. We're going to start above our head. The vowel sound is all. Inhale. Yo. Outside our right ear on the outside with ah. Yeah. Put your attention, your kavanah, your focus outside your left ear with the vowel A. Here in your right chest, right arm in your chest, with focus all of your energy. Can you tap that part of your body, your left chest, your left arm? The vowel is E. Your solar plexus, Tefer Chahara in martial arts. The sound is O. Your right hip. Sound is ooh. Pause, really breathe. Your left hip. Ooh. Ooh, your yesod and your foundation. And in silence, where the feet connect to the earth, connecting us with what is below. Take a moment, open your eyes. Just pause for a moment. I need to turn the heat down because it got very hot in this room very suddenly. If you have comments, this is a good time to type them in, how this is affecting you. Or at least put a thumbs up if you find it interesting or you're liking it. So we have an idea if this is working. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it slower. I'm going to call out the sound. Are there any questions or comments, Orlando, that I need to know about? Just my thought. I'm going to call out the sound again, where the place goes. And we'll do each letter with each breath. So I want you to really try and feel what the vowels are. Again, we're starting at the top of our head, above our head. The sound is all. Yo. Let the sound out. Inside the right ear with ah. Let the sound come out. Yeah. Swallow it out. So the left ear. A. Right chest with that. Left chest. That might be good if the image was on the board. Solar plexus O. Right hip with E. Left hip with U. Carrier Gorion of the woo. You. Silent as we connect to you. Just listen. We're going to end it by doing that Shema breathing exercise. So we inhale Shema. Exhale your name. Inhale Ha. Exhale Shem. Inhale Elo. Exhale I. Inhale Ha. Exhale Shem. Inhale Ha. Exhale Chad. Quietly come back. I don't know if you're comfortable typing in comments or thoughts, but this is a very powerful meditation. I'd love to know if people do have comments or thoughts. Again, it's very difficult to just do this with the lights on and a video camera, and it's much easier when the lights are dim and we just have some candles and we're a group of people. But hopefully you're getting a sense of Jewish meditation. I'm going to guess that probably took us somewhere between 8 and 10 minutes to do that cycle. Would that be about right, Orlando? I think that's about right. But it's very, very powerful. And it puts us in a receptive place to understand on an experiential level our relationship with life. To do that cycle 2, 3, 4 times, 10 times. We start to receive and we transcend the cycle itself and we just breathe and float. And that's important. Sometimes, often in Western culture, we lose that connection. We become unaware of that connection. That's probably a better way of phrasing it. We become unaware of the connection of God in every moment, in every aspect, in every facet of our lives. Everything. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, of blessed memory, used to say that either prayer means everything or means nothing. Either God is everything, and we just merely need to surrender and be partners with that divinity, or it means nothing in our lives. But I can say that you'll be happier and more joyous and live a better life with the former. The people of faith, whatever faith, have much more in common. And this is a way of regaining that faith. Meditation is a great way. Again, at the front of this handout, we have this great quote from Yogi Bhajan Khalsa, the man who brought Kundalini Yoga to this country. The prayer is when the mind is one-pointed and man talks to infinity. And meditation, what we were just doing, is when the mind becomes totally clear and receptive, and infinity talks to the man. This puts us in a mood, in a space, in an awareness to listen, to hear. Why are we here? What is this about? When I say here, it may not be actual voices, or it may be. It may not be visual, but it may be, or maybe feelings, or all of the above. This is an extremely powerful meditation to also do before going to sleep. I guarantee it will make your dreams that much more potent, that much more visual, that much more lucid. That you'll be able to access the Nagwa, you'll be able to access the non-physical reality that we touch in dreams. So that's really the exercise we want to build to be doing on a daily basis. That's a pretty intense exercise when you're doing it a few times a day. But let's just recap a few things. There's Ma'aseh Bereshit, how and why did God create the universe? Workings of creation. Ma'aseh Merkavah, the workings of the chariot, how and why does God sustain the universe? That skeleton key of the four-lettered name, Yud, He, Vav, and He, is the secret, as we discussed, opens up every part of the service, every part of our physical bodies, every part of our spiritual bodies, our ethereal bodies. It opens up every understanding in the Bible. Is that four-letter name? It's a skeleton key, as we discussed. We talked and really spent time examining and understanding how there's these hidden meanings in Torah in plain sight. You may remember from the first class when we went through, and we have it in the handout, that model of the word Bereshit, the first word of the Torah, and how it is a model for how to manifest anything in your life in partnership with God. You may remember how we looked at the name of God and changed it so on this handout so it's visual, vertical, right? So we can see that it corresponds to a human being. It looks like a person, that image. And again, the handouts are good stuff to study. There's a lot of material in there that we've gone over, and some that we haven't gone over that's just good reading. We really spent time on how the correlation between who we are, our relationship in the world, the letters of our name, and the elements. And we learned all that in Sefer Yetzirah, and even the stars and constellations in a Jewish traditional way. My friend and teacher, blessed memory, Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz used to go on every Sunday. He was on Venice Beach giving Jewish astrological readings. He'd invite people to come have a Jewish astrological reading. So a Jew would come and do that, and he talked to them while he was giving them an understanding of a Torah understanding of their relationship with the constellations, with stars, all as part of the relationship with God. And then he'd say, why don't you come to my house this Friday for Shabbos dinner? And he invited people over to outreach to Jews. We learned about that and about the numbers and how the numbers and our letters of our name and the elements and the constellations are all interwoven together in such a detailed way. And we've worked on meditation, the simplest one and most basic one being the Magen David, the triangle meditation. Again, it's all in the handout as well in class, but just the handout is there. The triangle meditation of creating what King David knew was a true shield, that we were always in partnership with God. That we need to be aware of what's called Yehud, unification, Devakut, to cleave together, not to be next to each other, close, but to cleave with God, to be unified with God. But I think there's a really important issue that has to be brought up before we close out this series of classes. Why? Why should we do this? What is the purpose? Is it an intellectual exercise so we can say, oh, I learned this meditation and this is what you do, although we never do it? Why is this such a vital part of Judaism? And as we discussed, how it's hidden in our liturgy, how this very structure of the service is designed to change our brain chemistry into a heightened state of awareness, a place where our sympathetic and parasympathetic systems shut down and the hippocampus becomes 400% more active, just as we discussed, right? Why is that beneficial? Why is that? Why do we want to do that? I could be spending the time studying the stock market to decide what the next GameStop stock is, or the next Dogecoin, whatever digital currency is. Why am I doing this? Why are we doing this? Why? If it's just for an intellectual exercise, as we discussed in the very first week, as Reb Zalman said, there are two people who explore this. The person who just wants to explore it intellectually can learn everything about everything, but experience nothing. And he called a Kabbalologist. As opposed to the Kabbalist, the person who experiences, chooses to go down that path, go over that bridge, and really listen and experience. The reason why is not to become an intellectual giant that can say, oh, I know this is what this teacher said, and this is what Cordovero said, and Luria said, and whatever rabbi said. No. The purpose to do this is to be more aware of who we are. Why we are here. I'd like to leave you with an image of this. So I'm going to take this away, so if you don't have it, you're going to have to rewind. So the reality is, most of us, most of the time, know what's right. Most of us, most of the time, we know what's right. There are people who are sociopathic, but most people know most of the time what is right. And we have a soul. And we have how we walk in this world. Just dry this off a little bit more. So we have a soul. It's who we are. We get born into this world because we have a reason, a tikkun ha'olam, and that doesn't mean social action. The phrase tikkun ha'olam has been so hijacked by the reform movement and a certain part of the reform movement to make it a politically progressive term of social action. It has nothing to do with tikkun olam. Tikkun olam means that we each have a piece of repairing the world that only we can do. I can't do yours, you can't do mine. And our job is to find out what is our tikkun olam and to do it. As I've said many times, I've written it, it's like we all need to find the instrument we're here to play and to play one note in tune. If my instrument is violin, not flute, or it's saxophone, not bass, to find what instrument, to play my one instrument in tune. And then when all of our souls are able to play our instrument and our one note in tune, that is truly the sound of heaven on earth. That is the sound. But we got to find our instrument. We got to find who we are. We got to walk in the world in such a way that it's an honest reflection of our neshama, of our soul. So here we have our soul. And how we walk in the world orbits around the soul. Now, for some people, they're really, really out of balance. Okay? And their orbit around their soul might look like this. And sometimes it's very close, sometimes it's farther away, sometimes whatever it may be. Other people have an elliptical circuit. They walk in the world in an ellipse around their soul. So sometimes they're way far away from why they're here to be, what they're here to do. But sometimes, like maybe when they go to a service or they're at a life cycle moment or they're at an especially meaningful lecture or podcast or radio show or TV show or whatever, they may be outside hiking. When those moments happen, they're closer. Meditation, understanding Maaseh Bereshis and Maaseh Merkavah, understanding this and experiencing, not understanding intellectually. Who cares? We talked about this weeks ago. Who cares if you know the names of the Sefirot unless you can understand why are they named that? Because you can experience the opening. Remember, we talked about Jacob's hip and the opening and the wrestling and God's name. So meditation takes this circle that may be all over, or it may be an ellipse, and it makes it different. The more we meditate and the more we act upon our inner realizations, the more that our circuit around our soul becomes this. And how we walk in the world on a day-to-day basis becomes a reflection of who and what we are. Last high holidays, I think it was 2 high holidays ago, 3 high, I don't remember. One of the high holidays in the last 5 years. I talked about on Rosh Hashanah that we all have these dreams when we were children put into us. We all have these thoughts. We all have these goals of doing good, or many of us did, of doing good, of affecting the world in a positive way, one person at a time, starting with ourselves, but of doing certain things. And then for so many of us, so many people, we lose that circuit. We lose that dream. We get so disconnected from what our purpose here is. Whether it's because we get seduced by power, money, fame, the opposite sex, whatever it may be. Whether it's because we get caught in battles. Whether it's because we're worrying about the mortgage payment or the car payment or whatever it may be. We forget why we're here. And we lose a connection to our fire. Our fire is our soul. And we lose that connection. What we've learned here over the last 2 months, month and a half, whatever it's been, is to help each person, each of us, renew that awareness with our soul's purpose, renew that fire inside us, renew that connection. That's why we're here. That's why I do this mystical woo-woo stuff, whatever you want to call it, so that we can live a better life. I don't mean a better life that we can make more money or buy a bigger house or drive a fancier car or whatever it is. No, that's not what I mean by a better life, so that we can serve the world better. We can make the world a better place than when we found it. So we can find our instrument and play that note in tune. That's why to do this. So each of you have been watching this for the last number of weeks. You have a choice. And I can't make the choice for you. I can tell you what's valuable, but I can't make the choice for you. You have a choice to take this information and say, oh, that's interesting. I'll even read it. I can even watch the tapes again, the videos again. That's very interesting. Well, I'm looking at the rabbi, and he just closes his eyes. Whatever. Why are you saying all this? Oh, isn't that interesting how there's this little hidden teaching in the Torah? And this little teaching from the Talmud or Sefer Yetzirah Rabbi here. Oh, isn't that fascinating how the stars do interact with us, or animals, or life? And it can be an intellectual exercise for you. In which case, you have a little bit more knowledge that you can show off at cocktail parties. Great cocktail party talk. Let me tell you about Jewish mysticism. Or you have another choice. Something drew you to listen, to watch, to want to learn. Something in your soul. Not in the way we walk around in our soul, but in the soul itself. So you have another choice. And that choice, which is the one I recommend and have certainly pursued all my life, literally all my life since my bar mitzvah, and believe in and can believe affects and have watched affect people and affect people with mental, emotional, spiritual, physical healing, and with making the world better. You have the choice that you can act on it. That you can practice each skill, each meditation, learn some of these techniques, understandings of the world, and start to view the world a little bit differently. And as a result, act in the world a little more righteously. I know you're all tzaddikim. I know that you're all perfectly righteous, but even a little more righteously. And make the world a little better place. That's why to do this. It's not just an intellectual exercise. It is appropriate that this is the last class in this series, and Thursday night is Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer, the day when we're inclined to get haircuts, buy new clothing. There are a couple of major things about the holiday. It is said that these students of Rabbi Akiva had a plague in the first 32 days of the counting of the Omer because they talked ill of each other. They forgot that they had the same values and they talked ill about each other. And so there was a plague, and the plague was lifted on the 33rd day of the Omer. That's one reason. The other reason is, as I said earlier, it was the yahrzeit, the death date of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Holy Zohar. And so it is said that he was so holy that the covenant of the rainbow, which is the covenant between God and mankind, that he would never destroy the world by flood again, by water, that there was no rainbow in all of Shimon Bar Yochai's life because he was so holy. He was the covenant. He was the rainbow. And because the word in Hebrew for rainbow and bow and arrows is roughly the same word, you will find kids throughout Israel and throughout the observant Jewish world playing with bows and arrows on this holiday. But there's two other pieces about rainbow. The first is that a rainbow is very different than a sword. A sword, you go and attack. A rainbow, you have to pull towards your heart. And the more you can pull it towards your heart, the straighter, the truer, and the farther the arrow will go. Meditation, understanding mystical understandings of how and why the world was created. This is a way of pulling the world into our hearts so we can let go our heart into the world and change it for the better. And times of conflict and war, and that is going on right now. And I'm not just talking about physical war between nations. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm actually referring to there's a war going on between the spiritual and the non-spiritual way of looking at the world. Forgive my dog. My children are just coming home from the game. But there's another meaning to the rainbow. Besides creating an instrument that can change things. It was an instrument of war, but it also can really change things the closer we pull back to our heart. The other piece of the rainbow is we're told that there will be a rainbow that will herald the coming of the Messiah. That the Mashiach will come and we'll know because there will be a special rainbow. And what's the difference between that rainbow and all the rainbows that we've all seen in our lifetime? If you look at a rainbow, the colors are misty. They're translucent. We're taught that a rainbow of full color, not translucent, will come as a preface to the coming of the Messiah. So why study all this stuff? Why learn all this stuff? Why practice all this stuff? So that we can start to make real rainbows. So we can fight that war between faith-based individuals and organizations and that which wants to destroy faith and spirituality and liberty, religious freedoms. So we can fight that in a spiritual way by drawing towards our heart and letting our heart change the world. Our neshama change the world. That's why we do this. I'd like to end this series with teaching. I may have relayed earlier in the videos. I honestly don't remember. A number of years ago, I was with my friend and teacher, Rabbi Abraham Greenbaum. He was one of the two founders of the Breslov Research Institute, which is the organization that's published so many of the Rabbi Nachman books over the last 40 years. And he was teaching meditation at an Orthodox synagogue in Los Angeles. And this was during one of the conflicts, Intifadis, one of the conflicts. And after this lecture on meditation, someone asked him, Rabbi, what does this have to do with the war in Israel? And he said, you do not understand. This is not a war between Arab and Jew. It is a war between good and evil. And there's good and evil on both sides. It cannot be resolved in this world, he said, because it's being fought in the spiritual realm, and we're just acting it out, manifesting it here. He said, you want to have peace in the Middle East? Then meditate, then pray, then sing and dance with your brother, because that will birth angels, and they will fight the war for peace, and then we'll have peace here. Now, that may sound very airy-fairy, very whatever, mystical, whatever to you, but I will tell you, it's the first time in my life I heard an answer that I could get my arms around. When we meditate, when we pray, when we listen to infinity, and when we act on what we hear, when we act on what we understand, when our soul and how we walk in the world are a circle, they're parallel, there's an orbit that's consistent, then we make the world a better place. One person at a time, starting with ourselves. First day we said this, only exceptional people have the power to look into the chasms of their soul. Though we are not always aware of it, society, a very different aspect of society, also puts pressure on people to pretend that they are much worse than they really are. Rabbi Steinsaltz. I want to encourage you to explore this viewing perspective of the world, this filter to experience life, including integrating meditation. I know it can be difficult. It looks deeply into the chasms of our soul, but it will encourage you to be who you really can be, to express who you really, really are. My prayer for all of us is that we learn who we are, why we are here, that we light the fire up inside ourselves to be passionate about doing our tikkun olam, our piece of repairing the world, our work. I can't do yours, you can't do mine. And that in doing so, we birth angels and we bless each other. We listen and we create peace in the world. Thank you for being good to me and kind to me these number of weeks. Again, you can always email me via rabbi@nersimcha.org. We have our classes online. You can review them. We have services. If you're not on our email, please go to our Facebook page. You can ask to be on the email list. You'll know about services, classes, other special events. And I hope to see you virtually and hopefully as well in person. We have live services. So if you're in the greater Los Angeles area, come on down for any of our live services. And again, I hope to see you soon in all worlds, physical and spiritual, and that each of us find and manifest and actualize our journey here. Again, thank you for being so kind. May have a Chag Sameach, a happy Lag BaOmer, and may we all find peace and passion in who we are. Shalom.